In the tropical forests of Western and Central Africa live our closest evolutionary relatives, with shaggy black fur, supremely high intelligence, and musculature that could put even the strongest humans to shame. These are, of course, the chimpanzees. Concealed deep within the verdant jungles they call home, chimpanzees have been a constant source of fascination to humanity for centuries and continue to permeate our culture to this very day. But how much do we know about these great apes, really? How do they live their lives in Africa's most remote rainforests? Well, today we aim to find out. In this video, we will be bringing you to the heart of Africa's jungles in search of the hidden lives of chimpanzees, in a deep dive that will cover hundreds of years of human history and millions of years worth of adaptations. Sit back and relax as we come face to face with our closest relatives, whose story has been shaped by our own more than we may care to think. Chimpanzees are, of course, primates, members of the same group that contains all of our immediate evolutionary relatives. It's an extremely broad group that includes wild animals from every continent except Antarctica, from the lemurs of Madagascar to the squirrel monkeys of South America, right through to the orangutans of Southeast Asia, to us. Within the order of primates, chimps, like humans, are placed within the family Hominidae, which contains the great apes. Great apes exclude the gibbons, but include orangutans and gorillas, in addition to chimpanzees and humans. Specifically, chimps are one of two species within the genus Pan. Their scientific name is Pan troglodytes, and their closest relative, the bonobo, is known as Pan paniscus. A chimp at a first glance is an extremely familiar face amongst the multitudes of creatures in the animal kingdom. They are one of the few wild animals to closely resemble human beings in terms of body and facial structure. With their soulful, forward-facing eyes, human-like hands that almost resemble our own, and their complex expressions that can convey a huge selection of emotions. Unlike humans, chimpanzees are covered in a layer of coarse black fur that can be found everywhere except their faces, hands, and feet. They can be distinguished from their relative, the bonobo, by their robust build and slightly larger frame. Male chimpanzees can weigh between 40 to 70 kilograms, or between 88 to 154 pounds. When fully grown, females are slightly smaller, reaching between 27 to 50 kilograms, or between 60 to 110 pounds. While that coarse fur coat is typically jet black in color, some chimps have shown patches of light brown or even ginger fur, and their coats tend to deteriorate as they age. Aging chimpanzees will develop graying or balding spots, which tend to occur around the tops of their heads, or the beard-like fur on their chins. Skin color in chimpanzees can also vary greatly too. All of the skin underneath the ape's black fur coat is a pinkish white in color, and while we often picture chimps with faces and hands of similar hues, individuals can have black, grayish, brown, or even mottled skin tones too. Chimpanzees are adaptable in terms of the way they move through the forests in which they live. When traveling across the ground, they typically do so quadrupedally, walking on their knuckles, much like a gorilla. Alternatively, they can walk bipedally, like a human, for short periods of time, but their muscles are not particularly well adapted to allow them to do so permanently. Chimpanzees really come into their own when they're climbing through the trees, however. Typically, a chimp will scale the vertical trunk of a tree to reach the branches of the canopy, where they will either amble through the leafy network of limbs or swing from branch to branch. Fast twitch muscle fibers in their arms allow them to do this with ease, and adult chimps can exhibit grip strengths of between 200 to 300 pounds, 130 kilograms, or between 440 to 730 pounds. Chimps can be found in fragmented populations of subspecies across Central and Western Africa's tropical rainforest belt. They tend to favour densely packed jungle, such as those that compose the Congo rainforest, but can venture out into open woodland or even grassland, depending on the population and location. This population fragmentation is just one reason why chimpanzees are classed as endangered on the IUCN Red List of species today. But certain subspecies need more immediate help than others. The recognized subspecies of chimpanzee are the central chimpanzee, or Pan-troglodytes troglodytes. This species can be found in the jungles that hug the western coastlines of Central Africa, including Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Cameroon, and both the Republic and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Otherwise known as the chigo, they tend to favor riverine tropical forests and have less hair covering their face than other subspecies. There are thought to be 140,000 individuals left in the wild today. The western chimpanzee, or Pan-troglodytes varus, is much rarer, down to around 52,000 individuals left in the wild. This makes this subspecies critically endangered on the Red List. Western chimpanzees can primarily be found in Western Africa, with populations present in the jungles of Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Ghana, Guinea, and as far north as the tropical regions of Mali. Western chimpanzees are considered to be very behaviorally distinct from other subspecies of chimpanzee, to the point where they have been considered to be a distinct species altogether. Western chimps have been observed using spear-like branches to hunt their prey and use cave systems as homes, much like early species of the genus Homo. The Nigeria-Cameroon chimpanzee, or Pan-troglodytes ellioti, is by far the most scarce subspecies of chimp, which may be down to as few as 6,000 individuals left in the wild. It is, however, listed as endangered and not critically endangered by the IUCN, as populations are slightly more stable than those of the western chimpanzee. As you might expect, this subspecies is found only in the forests of Nigeria and Cameroon, where they tend to prefer the highlands, living at elevations just under 3,000 meters, or just over 9,000 feet above sea level. The eastern chimpanzee, or Pan-troglodytes schweinfurthi, is doing slightly better, with as few as 180,000 and as many as 256,000 individuals in the wild. Still, they are listed as endangered and can be found across the eastern reaches of tropical Africa, with populations in Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Zambia, and South Sudan. There is also a proposed fifth subspecies, the southeastern chimpanzee, or Pan-troglodytes marungensis. There has been some debate as to whether or not this subspecies should be considered to be a population of eastern chimpanzees, but there is reason for some to believe they are distinct. The IUCN does not recognize this subspecies as valid, and therefore has not published data on their conservation status. But, if they are distinct, they can be found across Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi. Chimps are not strictly bound to jungles, however, and can be found in a variety of environments across the ranges in which they live. They occasionally venture out onto savannas and grasslands to find food or to seek out new territories, and can be just as at home in swamp forests and deciduous woodlands as they are in tropical rainforests. Chimpanzees all across Africa are omnivorous, much like humans are. They subsist on a diet primarily of fruit, but will be comfortable taking a huge variety of plant matter, from seeds, buds and leaves, to resin, blossoms, pith, and even bark. When eating fruit, they tend to prefer figs, of which over 60% of their feeding time is spent foraging for. Arboreal leaves are the second most popular form of food taken by chimps, and they'll spend almost 20% of their feeding time obtaining these. Chimpanzees will also supplement their diets with a wide range of insects, including weaver ants and honeybees. They sift through and even eat soil to get to the insects within. They'll obtain honey from bee colonies, and will even raid birds' nests to feed on their eggs. Chimpanzees also have a taste for meat, and are one of the few great ape species that will hunt and kill other animals. Occasionally, chimpanzees will work in coordinated troops to chase monkeys through the treetops. Red colobus and red-tailed monkeys are a favourite food when hunting, but individuals and groups have been seen picking off bush babies, yellow baboons, blue duikers, and even infant bushbucks and warthogs. While they do make efficient hunters, especially when using spear-like tools made from tree branches to pursue their prey, meat is not a large part of the average chimp's diet. Even in peak hunting seasons, chimps will consume as little as 65 grams of meat per day, making up only 2% of their entire diet. More often than not, they would prefer to forage across the rich forests in which they live for plant matter that they don't have to expend much energy in obtaining. Chimps live in complex social communities that can range in number from as few as 15 to as many as 150 apes, but these groups are rarely permanent. Often, chimps will find themselves travelling in small groups of just a few individuals, and some even prefer to travel through the forests alone. Groups entirely composed of males will be more inclined to hunt live prey, while groups of all females tend to form nurseries to care for infant chimps. Males are typically dominant in chimp society, with dominant individuals using their size and strength to protect their family and patrol their territory. Top-ranking male chimpanzees tend to be much more aggressive than those below them in the hierarchy, and due to the constant shifting of chimps between groups, they need to constantly reinforce their dominance with displays of power, especially when newcomers arrive. Many of these displays are just that, however, displays that do not result in physical altercations. It's not unheard of for dominant male chimps to initiate a fight with newcomers they do not trust or accept, but it is reasonably rare. It is when conflicts with rival groups over territory arise that chimps can really become aggressive. They have been known to brutally kill chimps belonging to opposing troops over war, like territory disputes. When such conflicts arise, parties of male chimpanzees will often patrol the borders of their territory and will engage in violent battles with any rival patrols they may encounter on their way. In situations where the rival patrol is much smaller, the larger group of chimps may opportunistically take over their domain, assimilating new lands into their makeshift empire. Chimps have a tender side, however, and are known to exhibit wide ranges of emotion within members of their communities. They use facial expressions to convey messages to one another. For example, a broad closed grin can mean that a chimp is frightened, while an open grin can indicate playfulness. When threatening another chimp, they will adopt a pout-like appearance, and those who have been threatened by another may bow their heads and extend a hand. When they're on the move, chimpanzees will beat their hands against tree trunks to convey messages to each other. They are also adept vocalizers and will make a variety of sounds to alert other chimps. The pant hoot is the most common vocalization seen in chimpanzees, which sees the animal progressively increasing the speed and volume of the high-pitched hoot sound characteristic of great apes. They are capable of screaming, grunting, whimpering, barking, and bird-like whistling calls too. Chimps form extremely close bonds with members of their communities and can often be seen engaging in play behaviors, which involve chasing, wrestling, or rolling with others. When doing so, they produce laugh-like sounds, which resemble deep breathing or panting. Their enjoyment of these activities seem to stay with them throughout their lives, and even old chimpanzees can be seen playing with members of their troop. To bond and socialize, chimps will also spend time grooming one another, which will involve picking lice out of one another's coat. While traveling through the forest, chimps will pick up lice, often of the species Pediculus schaeffi, the chimpanzee louse, which can irritate their skin and hair. By removing lice from the fur of a fellow chimp, newcomers to a group can increase the level of trust placed in them by dominant individuals, while trusted members can strengthen ties with their family and friends. There is no set breeding season for chimpanzees, and they can and will mate throughout the course of the year. Females will enter a state of oestrus and will become ready to mate when enough food is present in their territory. That way they will be able to support both themselves and any imminent offspring. While in estrus, females will mate with multiple males to give them the best chance of falling pregnant. But in some communities, the dominant male can restrict other males' access to the females of his group. Just like the behavior seen within male lions, adult male chimps may kill the offspring of rival males so they can bring females back into a state of estrus and mate with them themselves. Mating in chimps is brief, but females will carry their unborn babies for 8 months. When a baby chimp is born, it will be cared for primarily by its mother, where it will immediately receive food, protection from predators or rivals, and her body warmth to see them through their first few weeks of life. If a chimp's mother is a high-ranking female, it may stand a greater chance of survival. Some females within certain communities are untouchable, and rival males will not attempt to kill the offspring of a female with high status. Newborn chimpanzees are as helpless as newborn humans for the first 30 days of their lives, and will cling to their mother's belly fur while they develop the muscles needed for supporting their own bodies. For the next few months, chimps will develop the skills needed to survive in the wild. They will play with their mothers and with other young chimps in the community, and will eventually start riding on their mothers' backs when they reach around 5 months of age. By this time, they can sit, move, and even climb independently. And while they still rely upon their mother's protection, they are no longer helpless. Over the next 4 to 6 years, they will begin to mature and are weaned from their mother's milk, but will not reach maturity until around the age of 9. When they reach the early stages of adulthood, female chimps will begin moving between groups with their mothers and will start interacting with members of other communities. Males, however, will team up with other males to learn how to patrol their territory and hunt their prey. Males are more likely to stay within their maternal groups than females. Perhaps surprisingly, chimpanzees do not live for very long in the wild. The average chimp does not make it beyond the age of 15, but their chance of survival increases the older they get. Very rarely, chimps in the wild may exceed all expectations and live for almost 60 years, but this does not happen often. Chimps in the adequate care of human beings tend to reach between 31 to 38 years of age, and the oldest known chimps have exceeded even this. The oldest male on record was 66, and the oldest chimp on record overall was a female known as Little Mama, who reached the age of 80 during her time at Lyon County Safari in Palm Beach, Florida. Chimps, being so closely related to humans and other great apes, are among the most intelligent animals in the world. While sociability and play behavior is already a good indication of intelligence in an animal, these apes have taken their brains to the next level through their displays of calculated cooperation and self-awareness. Chimps can recognize themselves in a mirror, and have even been recorded as recognizing the numbers 1 through 9 in a 30-year study that took place at Kyoto University's Primate Research Institute. In the study, one chimp, by the name of Ayumu, was able to successfully complete a memory test in which jumbled numbers are displayed on a screen for less than a quarter of a second. He could correctly point to the positions that the numbers appeared in ascending order, outperforming several human participants of the same test. Chimps also have a degree of technological understanding and have developed their own tools and systems to help care for themselves in the wild. These apes will build nests every night from branches and leaves, providing a comfortable platform in which they can sleep, out of the reach of predators. Chimps have been recorded crushing insects and applying them to their wounds as a form of basic medical care, and even apply these medicines to other chimps in need of them. Nearly every population of chimp on the planet has demonstrated a degree of tool use, which can range in complexity from simple twigs to sharpened spears. Chimps can specifically modify twigs to suit a purpose, selecting ones that are best suited to coaxing ants out of a nest or snapping longer twigs to make even more effective tools. As we mentioned before, some chimps even sharpen sticks using their teeth, developing spears that can be used to capture bush babies, squirrels, and even monkeys. Chimpanzees also display a great degree of emotional intelligence. When a member of their troop passes away, the surviving members will react with a frenzy of vocalizations, often repeatedly touching the corpse. They have been recorded caring for their dying elders, and have even been seen cleaning corpses with water immediately after they have died. They tend to avoid the spots where their fellow chimpanzees have passed away, and act highly subdued when tragedy strikes. Heartbreakingly, mother chimpanzees have been spotted carrying around the corpses of their infants for days after their deaths. So intelligent are chimpanzees that scientists have attempted to teach them human language, and remarkably there seems to have been some success. In the 1960s, researchers Alan and Beatrix Gardner spent 51 months teaching a chimp named Washoe over 150 components of American Sign Language. Reportedly, Washoe even taught signs to other chimpanzees, and over the course of her life could interpret and use over 350 phrases in sign language. However, other researchers have had varying degrees of success and questioned chimps' innate ability to learn human language. Some have proposed that chimps do not acquire language in the same way humans do, but are simply stringing together phrases they associate with food or rewards. Either way, the fact that they are capable of sign language in the first place displays a great degree of intelligence. While you might expect chimpanzees to have had an extremely long, ancient history with their closest relatives, us, that is not the case, and chimps have only really permeated human popular culture within the last several hundred years. Chimps do not seem to be highly revered, even in traditional African cultures, such as those of the Geo people of Liberia, who use chimpanzee masks while teaching young children how they shouldn't be behaving. The Hemba people of the Congo make similar masks for funerary rituals, with sinister smiles. They see the chimps as animals that represent the awful reality of death. Many native African groups have viewed chimpanzees as being too close for comfort over the years, due to their close evolutionary relationship with humans, and many cultural groups exclude them from their practices full stop. It wasn't until chimpanzees permeated Western consciousness in the 1700s that they found their way into popular culture on a wider scale. Chimps have long since been seen as humorous characters in the media, an inherently funny animal that often appears in books, films, and cartoons aimed at families or children. In the 1900s, chimpanzees would be frequently utilized in Western media, with individuals taking center stage in circus shows, television, and advertising. While chimps are still used in entertainment to this day, the presence of live chimps in the media has been greatly reduced. Such practices are sadly abusive to the animals, who are often put under duress in order to perform. In modern culture, chimps appear as realistic CGI movie stars, including those seen in the ongoing reboot of the Planet of the Apes franchise. Chimps have historically been kept as exotic pets both within and outside of Africa. This is a great problem for chimpanzees in the wild, as they will often be captured and sold on the black market as part of the global exotic pet trade. This can be extremely detrimental to the chimp, who will often be forced to endure stressful situations as they are taken from their home and placed into a human environment unsuitable for their needs. Several villages in the Democratic Republic of Congo are known to house chimpanzees as pets, but the concept of owning a great ape has reached much further afield. Several notable instances have been recorded in the United States, which can often end in disaster. One such notable incident is the story of Travis the chimp, where in 2009 in Stamford, Connecticut, an overweight 90 kilogram or 200 pounds chimp who was being kept as a pet attacked his owner's friend in a frustrated rage. Travis was killed by police after the attack, but the victim, Cyle Nash, sadly lost her hands, eyes, nose, and part of her jaw in the onslaught, and has subsequently gone through extensive reconstructive surgery. Due to their close evolutionary proximity with humans, chimps have long since been the subject of human research. Often, these animals are kept in inadequate conditions within laboratories and have been subject to painful product testing in many cases. Humans have sequenced the chimpanzee's genome, which temporarily led to a rise in the use of animal testing on the apes. But thankfully, these practices are now being met with backlash. Chimpanzees are one of the few species who have temporarily left planet Earth too. On January 31st, 1961, a chimp by the name of Ham was the first great ape to be launched into outer space, taking part in a suborbital flight as part of the Mercury Redstone 2 mission for the United States space program. He safely returned to planet Earth after the mission and spent his remaining years in Washington, D.C.'s National Zoo, as well as North Carolina Zoo, later in life. Sadly, the chimpanzee is an endangered species, but is now protected in many regions across its African home range. In the early 1900s, over 1 million chimpanzees were thriving in the forests of Africa. But now, between 172,000 to 299,000 remain. How could this be? Well, the largest threat to this great ape is habitat destruction. As human beings press further and further into the forests of our planet to establish lumber plants, the chimp's home comes under threat. Huge swathes of forests are cut down to feed the ever-growing hunger of the logging industry. If chimps don't get killed as part of the deforestation process, they will be ejected from their former homes and forced into the territories of other chimps who may kill them. Sometimes chimps can find themselves without dense forest to protect them, as huge areas of forest are demolished. Here, they can struggle for resources, and large troops may go into decline as a result. Moreover, chimps are a prized target for poachers. Illegal hunters will often pursue chimpanzees for bushmeat, which is sold in urban markets across Africa. Chimps that are not killed in this way may be taken alive to be sold on the black market as exotic pets, which can mean that the apes find their way into far-off countries that would never normally inhabit. Chimps rarely do well as pets, and as we saw in the case with Travis, keeping them in inadequate conditions can often lead to disaster. Poachers don't even need to be targeting the chimps directly for them to decline in number. Some chimps sadly fall victim to the traps poachers will set up for other animals and end up as an unwanted byproduct of the hunt. Additionally, farmers may persecute hungry chimps that enter their lands to forage for fruits and nuts. All of these factors combine to be devastating for chimpanzee populations across the African continent. Even chimps that don't come into contact with humans can find themselves at risk when infectious diseases take hold. Due to the fact that we share between 96 and 99% of our genetic makeup with chimpanzees, the apes often find themselves suffering from the same conditions we do. Even the common cold can ravage chimp populations, which has raised ethical concerns about great ape tourism. Chimps can also suffer from Ebola, intestinal parasites, and human metapneumovirus. The virus that evolved into HIV in humans was originally found in chimpanzees, and these apes can even be at risk from heart disease when kept inadequately in zoos and wildlife parks. When supporting chimp populations in the wild, conservationists have put an emphasis on habitat protection, first and foremost. By re-establishing the forests that the chimps formerly called home, their numbers will slowly but surely increase, leading to a higher chance of the apes gaining a foothold on lands they lost. This way, conservationists can limit the population fragmentation of chimpanzees in the wild, which will help increase diversity in the species gene pool. Various conservation programs also aim to stop or slow deforestation in the African rainforests. Education regarding sustainability is gradually provided to native populations of people, encouraging them to turn to gardening rather than exploiting the resources of the forest. Law enforcement can be encouraged to crack down on poaching, which can lead to lengthy prison sentences for those involved in the killing or illegal trafficking of chimps. Moreover, forest rangers can be employed and trained to remove the illegal traps set for chimps, as well as the other endangered animals in these forests. When chimps are cared for ethically in human captivity, breeding programs can be established that will one day be used to replenish populations in the wild, while injured or orphaned apes can be cared for in sanctuaries. Chimps and bonobos are our closest living relatives. Simply put, we cannot let them succumb to the ravages of human advancement. We are still learning much about these complex and highly emotive animals, and we won't get to obtain that information if all the world's chimpanzees were to disappear. Thankfully, conservation efforts are working, and one day we can expect to hear the familiar sounds of chimp hoots and screeches echoing out across all of Africa's tropical forests forevermore.